And I was, of course, deeply saddened that the events had come to this. I think that even up until Sunday, I did not feel the president would be removed from office. But with the revelation of the tapes on Monday and the contents of those tapes, I think it became clear that it was necessary for the president to leave office. I think he's done it with grace and dignity, and I deeply regret it. I think of his strength. I think really when you look at his accomplishments from January 1969 in again, a historical perspective, the ending of the war in Vietnam, the calming of the riots in our streets and on our campuses, the dramatic changes in the relations with China and Russia, the new domestic programs of all kinds, and the recent successes in the Middle East, then you have to say that this is really a marvelous world leader. Like all of us, he's got his faults and his failings, and Watergate, which was a shabby and trivial kind of thing, has brought down a great world leader, and I don't see it in any other way but a tragic event.
The events that led to this decision, I would say only, America needs a full-time president and a full-time Congress. I have never been a quitter. To leave office before my term is completed is abhorrent to every instinct in my body. But as president, I must put the interests of America first. Profound sense of the weight of responsibility that will fall on his shoulders tomorrow, and therefore of the understanding, the patience, the cooperation he will need from all Americans. I shall leave this office with regret at not completing my term, but with gratitude for the privilege of serving as your president for the past 5.5 years. Throughout the long and difficult period of Watergate, I have felt it was my duty to persevere.
Oh no, and I think that my own reactions are that we've lived with this thing for so long that as it has unfolded and developments have taken place, I believe that my own feelings are that I was prepared for this, particularly after Monday. I've been thinking that this would be the end result since I first heard of these tapes on Monday. The new evidence that was not available before, I do not think that he would have been convicted on impeachment in the Senate without the revelation of these new tapes. But with those revelations, it became inevitable, and I think the president had to leave.
Did the Monday statement and release of the tapes change your opinion of what you had thought before?
Oh, absolutely. I had no question in my mind since Monday that he should leave office. I think that has nothing to do with the evaluation of his greatness as a president. And I think that that's the thing that history will put in perspective for us. Incidentally, just the Russians and the potential enemies of this country have not respected any president of the United States as much as they respect this guy. This doesn't mean they liked him, but he was tough, he was unpredictable. They never dreamed he'd go into Cambodia. They knew the mood of this country, and he went into Cambodia in spite of that. They never dreamed he would mine the harbors of Haiphong to bring that war to a conclusion, because they knew the mood of this country as well as we did. And the president knew the mood of this country. He talked about it constantly, about what was going to happen in the reactions. But he did these kind of things in such a tough way that it had the Russians and our potential enemies off balance, so that he was able to make the kind of progress that he's made in world relations that no other president in our time has been able to make. So they'll remember him as a tough president, all right.
Okay. Thank you.
We condemn him for simply being human. It's small wonder that a president, any president, tries to maintain his image of infallibility. Small wonder that he tries to have the media maintain for him this image of someone who never stumbles, never misjudges, and never has a bad day. Ironically, the media goes along, giving him what has become almost a tradition, a honeymoon period. And then after treating him like a superhuman being, they turn on him as though by being human and fallible, he has somehow deceived them. A case in point is President Ford's pardon of Richard Nixon. The reaction was totally out of proportion to the merits of the case. I'm confident that in the perspective of history, the Nixon years will be highly regarded, and that President Nixon's accomplishments, particularly in foreign affairs and his efforts for lasting peace, will be recorded with great distinction. The Nonpartisan National Taxpayers Union in Washington, D.C. just recently rated all of the United States senators on their taxing and spending policies. And my friends, my opponent, on a scale of 100, rated a flat 0. And it went on to say that he was the senator most responsible for raising taxes and raising spending in this United States. And I'm against raising taxes, and I'm against raising spending, and I'm for getting the taxes off the backs of the average working man and woman in this country and in this state. The first thing is, and I think it's important, I think we have to think in terms of who's going to be the next president of the United States. And if you accept the fact that President Nixon is going to be reelected, then I say to you there's nobody in Alabama that has the relations with the President of the United States and with the cabinet officers that run this administration like a man who has spent 3 years as a member of that president's cabinet. So that's one of the reasons I'm in this race, because I believe I can do more for the people of Alabama in the next term of office, and that's the reason I run. Let me
The Sparkman campaign has said that if John Sparkman is defeated, Alabamians will lose seniority that they have in the Senate. How would you counter this?
Well, in the first place, I don't know what seniority is worth to the average Alabamian. You just ask each and every Alabamian what it means. They don't even know what it means to them. What happened to seniority when they closed Brooklyn Field in 1966 or 67? Where was my opponent then using all this seniority? What's happened when 20,000 jobs have left the Huntsville installation, NASA installation, and gone to Texas? What happened then? What happened with seniority when they moved these jobs from Fort Rucker out to Texas? and losing jobs for people in Alabama. I think if you use your seniority only for the special interests, as my opponent has done, and the influence peddlers, then I think it's badly misused. So I think what we need is somebody speaking for the people of Alabama rather than speaking for special interests like banking groups. What are banks in New York or Massachusetts doing contributing to my opponent's campaign? What are builders in Beverly Hills, California doing contributing to my opponent's campaign? That 70% of his contributions come from these vested interests that he regulates as chairman of his committee. Now, I think there's something immoral about that. We knew it, and we've steadily closed the gap, and now the gap has been closed, and the momentum is with our campaign going ahead. You know, when you want to be ahead in an election is on election day, not last July. So we're very pleased with it, and we think that we're going to win the race tomorrow night.
There are a number of newspapers in this state that have printed editorials, and they charge that you have conducted a smear campaign. What would be your comments on this?
Well, my comments wouldn't do to put on the air, but I think it's a lot of
I just discussed the general issue of the concentration of power in Washington. Get it. And this is one of the major reasons I wound up in politics. I was a businessman. I got back from World War II and realized I had 7 people on my payroll who did nothing but try to keep me out of trouble and were not productive in the sense of profit and loss. I got into national politics to see if I couldn't help cut down the tremendous concentration of power in the bureaus. And I'll say this, that this man I'm sitting with is the first man that's ever come to Washington in my tenure here that's done anything about taking power away from a political organization such as the post office was. But under Red, it started on a new foot, and the regulations that we now live under with the post office department are much less than they were before he came there. I wish we could get a few more men like Red to come to Washington so that all of you in the South and the West and the East and the North that live in this country as freer people. Frankly, I see this concentration of power in the hands of the bureaus of Washington as a much greater threat to our way of life than any internal or external communism.
I've been studying the Capitol Report in quite some detail. It's a very detailed study. I've had a meeting with Mr. Capel, spent several hours with him discussing it. I plan to study it, of course, very closely over the coming weeks and months. It will be difficult for me to make any comment about it at this time because I obviously don't know enough about the Post Office Department nor about the recommendations in this report. There are some things that indicate in this report that indicate there are things that can be done in the Post Office Department to make it a more efficient and effective instrument of our government. So while I can't make any definitive comment about the report itself, it's certainly one that's will get a great deal of study from me and from the team that I hope to assemble in the Post Office Department. Hopefully we're going to be able to bring some a business-like approach to this operation. I think that one of the great things that I have found out is the postal employees are a tremendous group of people, and I hope to be able to provide some leadership and looking toward a better way of life for all of the people in the postal department. I hope that we can bring modern business methods, modern management techniques. I hope we can do things along the lines of mechanization that will make for a better climate with which the postal employees work, that will make for more effective delivery of the mail, if you will. These are the kind of things that we did discuss in great detail, and again, I hope to be able to work with the members of Congress, the members of the postal unions, and all of the groups involved in order to reach what I think is a common objective, really. It's better mail service and a better atmosphere in which the postal employees have to work. And I would look with confidence on the possibilities of making headway in this regard. I was faced with, as some of you know, some pretty difficult decisions. This, our company is one that is very close to me. I told Mr. Nixon that thinking of leaving it either temporarily or otherwise was thinking in terms of leaving my family, because those of us that have worked in our company have a special kind of relationship that made this a very difficult decision. Our company is, one of our philosophies has been that we were going to build a company that would survive any one man, of course including the president, and I'm certain that we have built this organization that way, and however long I might be away from it, I'm certain it's going to continue as a very fine organization, in my opinion, the finest collection of construction men and women in the country. I had a flying trip around after talking to all of our people in our company. Here in Montgomery, I took a trip on Monday and Tuesday of last week, visited all of our jobs, covered something over 3,000 miles in a day and a half, including late night meetings, and to talk to our people and tell them why, what I had done and my reasons for it. As some of you know, while my life has been in the business world, I have had a great interest in public affairs, have always urged others to participate in public activities, and I just came to the conclusion that this was an opportunity to serve our country at a level that I could not turn down. So I say that they've been traumatic weeks, they've been difficult weeks, they've been weeks of tough decisions, but they have also at the same time been full of interest and excitement. So I have undertaken this job, assuming if I can get confirmation. I'm looking forward to it with enthusiasm and hope that I can make a contribution. We, of course, are considering a number of alternatives. That's one of them. When a decision is made, of course, that will be made public information, but there's no decision has been made, and I'd like to emphasize that. There have been some stories which I think were probably premature, but again, that is one of the things that is under consideration.
When will you have to make up your mind?
Well, I've got to make up my mind about a lot of things between now and the middle of January. One of the things I've got to think about in that connection is organizing the post office department, and that's going to be a pretty full-time job in itself. They are business decisions. We are in the process of thinking about corporate changes within the company now of course, with my departure for ongoing management. And those decisions will also be announced to the media as soon as they are made. The problems must also be job training and job opportunities. Here's where businessmen particularly can help. Throughout the country and the National Alliance for Businessmen and on their own, businesses have in recent years provided hundreds of thousands of jobs for the so-called hardcore unemployed. And there's a need for more of this in our nation's small and medium-sized cities. We must also find ways of harnessing the resources of all of the volunteer talents in the community through programs of total community development. We've mentioned the increasing readiness of citizens all over the country to work for community betterment, but they must have a channel for these efforts. Total community development is a process for coordinating the efforts of all of those that are working to improve the community. It brings together all organizational groups in the community, including labor and business, consumer and minority, educational, religious, civic, and patriotic groups in an orderly plan for progress. Now, these various organizations are unable to solve these problems alone, but together they can do it. And they must get together in order to do it. We must address ourselves to the human as well as the material aspects of our communities and cities. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm convinced that the cities of America will solve their problems, primarily because men and women like those here tonight are willing to work through organizations like the Chamber of Commerce to make an even greater nation. Businessmen have much to offer in the way of volunteer and public service. By making available their leadership, their management ability, their problem-solving experiences, there's much to be done. Your community desperately needs your commitment. And I'm convinced that the personal rewards and satisfactions of community service far outweigh the effort required. Existence, said John Mason Brown, is a strange bargain. Life owes us little. We owe it everything. And the only true happiness comes from squandering ourselves for a worthy purpose.